The gym smelled of sweat and steel, a place where hearts raced as fast as the treadmill's whirred. I stood by the weight rack, my pulse hammering, not from the workout, but from the guy who'd just asked me to spot him. His name was Ethan, and in that moment, I realized I'd been watching him for weeks, not his form, but him. I'm Noah, 25, a graphic designer who found solace in the clank of weights and the rhythm of reps. Chicago's urban sprawl was my home, a city of sharp edges and fleeting connections. The gym, a gritty, no-frills spot called Iron Haven, was my escape from a world that felt too big, too cold. I wasn't out not to my family, not to my coworkers, barely to myself. Growing up in a small Midwest town, I'd learned to keep my feelings locked tight, like a safe no one could crack. But Ethan, he was the kind of guy who made you want to throw the key away. Ethan was 27, a personal trainer with a laugh that could cut through the gym's noise like sunlight through fog. Blonde hair, always a little messy, framed a face that was all sharp angles and easy charm. He wasn't just fit. He was the kind of strong that made you feel safe, like he could carry the world if you asked. We'd been gym buddies for months, small talk about sets, protein shakes, and the Bears' latest loss. But today, something shifted. His hand brushed mine when he handed me a water bottle, and his eyes lingered a second too long. "Spot me, Noah," he'd said, his voice low, like he was asking for something more. I nodded, my throat dry, and followed him to the bench press. The gym was alive, grunts, clanging plates, hip-hop pulsing through the speakers, but all I could hear was my own heartbeat. Ethan lay back, his shirt clinging to his chest, and I stood over him, hands hovering, ready to catch the bar. His eyes flicked up to mine, and I swear, it wasn't the weight he was lifting that made his breath catch. "You good?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "Yeah," he said, grinning. "Just don't let me drop this thing." But the way he said it, the way his gaze held mine, felt like he was daring me to catch something else entirely. That night, I couldn't sleep. My apartment, a cramped one-bedroom in Wicker Park, felt too quiet. I replayed that moment in the gym, dissecting every glance, every word. Was I imagining it? Ethan was out, unapologetically himself, with a rainbow wristband he wore like a badge. Me, I was still hiding, terrified of what it meant to want him. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from Ethan. "Yo, you free tomorrow? Got a new lift I want to try." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. 1,000 unsaid words caught in my throat. I typed back, "Sure. See you at Iron Haven." The next day, the gym felt different, like the air itself was charged. Ethan was waiting by the squat rack, his smile brighter than the fluorescent lights. "You're late," he teased, tossing me a towel. I laughed, but my stomach twisted. We moved through our routine deadlifts, pull-ups, banter that felt like flirting but could have just been friendly. Then, during a break, he leaned close, his shoulder brushing mine. "You ever think about getting out of your head, Noah?" he asked, his voice soft but piercing. "Just living." I froze. He wasn't talking about reps or form. He was talking about me, about the walls I'd built, the ones I thought no one could see. "What do you mean?" I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. He shrugged, but his eyes didn't leave mine. "You're always so careful. Like you're afraid to want what you want." My heart slammed against my ribs. He knew. Somehow, he knew. Before I could respond, A shout from across the gym broke the moment, some guy dropping a plate, cursing loudly. Ethan chuckled, but the question hung between us, unanswered. Over the next week, our workouts became something else. Every touch, every laugh, every glance felt like a step towards something I couldn't name. I started noticing things about him: the way his hands gripped the bar, the way he'd hum off-key to the radio, the way he'd wait for me after every session, like he didn't want to leave. But fear clung to me like damp gym clothes. What if I was wrong? What if I said something and lost him? My family's voices echoed in my head: my dad's lectures about being a man, my mom's quiet disappointment when I dodged questions about girlfriends. Coming out wasn't just a conversation. It was a demolition. One evening, after a brutal leg day, Ethan suggested grabbing a drink. "There's this bar, the Hideout," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Low-key. Good vibes. You in?" I hesitated. A bar meant no weights to hide behind, no reps to count. Just us. But his smile was impossible to refuse. "Yeah," I said. "I'm in." The Hideout was a dive bar with sticky floors and neon signs. The kind of place where secrets felt safe. We sat in a corner booth, beers in hand, and really talked. He told me about growing up in Ohio, coming out at 19, the fights with his parents, the freedom he found when he moved to Chicago. "It's not easy," he said, his voice steady but raw. "But it's worth it. Being who you are, it's the only way to live." I wanted to tell him everything: how I'd known I was gay since I was 15, how I'd buried it under years of denial, how meeting him made me want to stop running. But the words stuck. Instead, I said, "You make it sound simple." "It's not," he said, leaning closer. "But you don't have to do it alone." His hand rested on the table, inches from mine. I could have reached out. I could have changed everything. But I didn't. Not yet. That night at the Hideout marked a shift. Ethan's words, "You don't have to do it alone," looped in my mind like a song I couldn't shake. I started counting the hours until our next gym session. Not for the workout, but for him. Back at Iron Haven, the routine was the same, but the undercurrent was electric. Ethan's teasing had a new edge. His touches lingered, a hand on my shoulder to correct my form, a nudge when he laughed. I caught myself smiling too much, my guard slipping. But doubt was a shadow I couldn't outrun. What if I misread him? What if I opened up and he pulled away? The gym, once my sanctuary, was now a battleground of hope and fear. One afternoon, as we racked weights, Ethan dropped a bombshell. "I'm thinking of moving," he said, casual, like he was talking about changing his protein powder. My stomach plummeted. "Moving where?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. "Seattle," he said. "Got a job offer at a gym there. Better pay. New city. Fresh start." He glanced at me, like he was waiting for a reaction. I nodded, muttering something about how cool that sounded. But inside, I was unraveling. Seattle was 1,000 miles away. The thought of losing him before I'd even had the courage to say what I felt was a punch to the gut. That night, I called my sister, Claire. She was the only one who knew about me, the only one I'd trusted with the truth. "You're an idiot," she said, her voice crackling through the phone. "You like this guy? Tell him. What's the worst that happens? He says no. At least you'll know." Her words were blunt, but they hit hard. She was right. I was running out of time. The next gym session, I was a mess, missing reps, fumbling weights. Ethan noticed. "You okay, man?" he asked, his brow furrowed. We were by the dumbbells. The gym quieter than usual. I took a breath, my heart pounding like I'd just sprinted a mile. "Can we talk?" I said, the words tasting foreign. He nodded, and we stepped outside, the Chicago wind biting at my skin. "I don't want you to go," I blurted, my voice shaking. "To Seattle. I like you, Ethan. More than a friend." The words hung in the air, raw and terrifying. His eyes widened, then softened. For a moment, he didn't speak, and I braced for rejection. "Noah," he said finally, his voice low. "I've been waiting for you to say that." My breath caught. He stepped closer, his hand brushing mine. Deliberate this time. "I like you too. A lot." The world tilted. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to kiss him right there on the sidewalk. But before I could, he added, "But Seattle, it's not just a job. It's a chance to start over. I've got baggage here. Stuff I haven't told you." My heart sank. "What kind of baggage?" I asked. He hesitated, then told me about his ex. A guy named Ryan who'd broken his heart, left him distrustful. "I'm scared," Ethan admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Scared of getting hurt again. But you make me want to try." We stood there, the city buzzing around us, and I made a choice. "Then let me try with you," I said. "Stay? Or let me come with you? Just don't leave me behind." His smile was small but real, and when he squeezed my hand, it felt like a promise. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Ethan decided to stay in Chicago, at least for now, turning down the Seattle offer. We started spending time outside the gym coffee shops, late-night walks along Lake Michigan, moments that felt like stolen breaths. But coming out to myself was one thing. Coming out to the world was another. My parents were coming to visit, and the thought of telling them about Ethan made my stomach churn. One night, over pizza at Lou Malnati's, I told Ethan about my family. "They're old school," I said, picking at my crust. "Dad thinks being gay is a choice. Mom just pretends it doesn't exist." Ethan listened, his hand resting on mine under the table. "You don't have to tell them yet," he said. "But when you do, I'll be there. Every step." His words gave me courage, but not enough. The day my parents arrived, I was a wreck. We met at a diner in Lincoln Park, their familiar faces a reminder of the life I'd left behind. Over coffee and pancakes, they asked about work, the city, my plans. I wanted to tell them about Ethan, about the guy who made me feel alive. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I smiled and nodded, the weight of my silence crushing me. That night, Ethan came over. He didn't push, didn't judge. He just held me, his arms strong and steady. And for the first time, I felt like I could breathe. "You'll get there," he whispered, "and I'll wait." In that moment, I knew I loved him not just for who he was, but for who he helped me become. Loving Ethan was like discovering a new muscle, one I didn't know I had. One that ached with every use but made me stronger. We were official now, a couple, though the words still felt strange on my tongue. Chicago's streets felt brighter with him beside me, but the shadow of my unspoken truth loomed large. My parents' visit stretched into a week, and every dinner, every conversation, was a tightrope walk. I'd catch myself almost mentioning Ethan, only to pivot to safe topics: work, the weather. Anything but the truth. Ethan was patient, but I could see the hurt in his eyes when I dodged his hand in public or changed the subject when he mentioned us. "I'm not ashamed of you," I told him one night, my voice cracking. "I'm just scared." "I know," he said, pulling me close. "But hiding who you are, it's like lifting with bad form. It'll hurt you eventually." His words stung because they were true. I was hurting myself. And worse, I was hurting him. The gym remained our safe space. Iron Haven was where we'd met, where we'd fallen in love. And now, where we navigated this new reality. One evening, as we spotted each other on bench presses, a guy from the gym mic, a loudmouth regular, made a snide comment. "You two look cozy," he said, smirking. "What's the deal?" My face burned, and I braced for Ethan to brush it off. Instead, he grinned and said, "Yeah, he's my boyfriend." "Got a problem?" Mike muttered something and walked away, but my heart was racing. Ethan's unapologetic pride was a mirror, showing me what I could be. That moment lit a fire in me. I didn't want to hide anymore, not from Mike, not from my parents, not from myself. But courage was a muscle I hadn't trained. When my parents invited me to dinner at their hotel, I knew it was my chance. Ethan offered to come, but I needed to do this alone. "I'll be waiting," he said, kissing my forehead. "You've got this." The dinner was at a fancy steakhouse downtown, all dim lights and clinking glasses. My parents were in good spirits, talking about their old neighbors, their plans for retirement. I barely touched my food, my stomach in knots. Finally, as dessert arrived, I took a breath and said, "There's something I need to tell you." Their smiles faltered, and I pushed on. "I'm gay, and I'm in love with someone. His name's Ethan." The silence was deafening. My dad's face hardened, his fork frozen midair. My mom stared at her plate, her lips tight. "Noah," my dad said finally, his voice low, "this isn't you. You're confused." My mom reached for my hand, but her touch felt like pity. "We just want you to be happy," she said, but her eyes said something else: disappointment, fear. I left the restaurant feeling like I'd dropped a barbell on my chest. When I got to Ethan's apartment, I broke down. He held me, his arms a lifeline. "They'll come around," he said, but I wasn't sure. For the first time, I understood the cost of being myself, not just the freedom, but the loss. The next day, I threw myself into the gym, lifting heavier than ever, as if the weights could crush the pain. Ethan was there, steady as always, but I could feel the strain between us. Hiding had hurt him. Coming out might hurt him more. "I'm proud of you," he said after our workout, his voice soft. "But you don't have to carry this alone." I nodded, but the weight of my parents' reaction clung to me. Over the next week, I avoided my parents' calls. Claire texted, urging me to give them time. But time felt like a luxury I didn't have. Ethan and I grew closer, our nights filled with quiet moments cooking together, watching old movies, stealing kisses in the glow of his TV. But the fear of losing my family gnawed at me, a constant reminder of what I stood to lose. Then, one morning, I got a text from my mom. "Can we talk? Just you and me." My heart raced. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop near her hotel. When I arrived, she looked tired, her eyes red. "I've been reading," she said, her voice shaky. "About what it means to be gay. About parents like me. I don't understand everything. Noah, But I don't want to lose you. It wasn't acceptance not yet, but it was a start. For the first time, I felt a flicker of hope. Hope was fragile, like a new PR you're not sure you can hold. My mom's words at the coffee shop were a crack in the wall, but my dad's silence was a weight I couldn't lift. Ethan was my anchor, but even he couldn't carry everything. Back at Iron Haven, we fell into our rhythm, lifting, laughing, loving in the spaces between reps. But the gym wasn't just our haven anymore. It was a microcosm of the world outside. Mike's snide comments didn't stop, and I noticed other glances, whispers. Ethan brushed them off, but I couldn't. Every smirk felt like a challenge to my newfound courage. One night, as we left the gym, a group of guys Mike included lingered by the entrance. Faggots, one of them muttered, loud enough to hear. Ethan's hand tightened on mine, but he kept walking. I wanted to turn back, to shout, to fight, but his grip held me steady. They're not worth it, he said later, his voice calm but strained. You pick your battles, Noah. This one's not ours. His strength was humbling, but it also scared me. Ethan had fought these battles before coming out. Losing friends. Rebuilding. I was new to this. Raw and unsteady. At his apartment, I asked, how do you do it? How do you keep going when people hate you for who you are? He looked at me, his eyes fierce. Because I'm not just fighting for me. I'm fighting for us, for you. For everyone who's still scared. You don't win by punching back. You win by living. His words hit harder than any weight I'd lifted. I kissed him. Hard. Like I could pour all my fear and love into that moment. The next day, my dad called. I almost didn't answer. But Ethan's voice echoed in my head, you don't have to do it alone. Noah, my dad said, his voice gruff. I don't get this. I don't like it. But you're my son. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was something. A step. I told Ethan. And he grinned, pulling me into a hug. Told you, he said. They'll come around. But the world wasn't as forgiving as Ethan's arms. At work, I started opening up, mentioning Ethan in passing. Most coworkers were fine, but a few guys I'd thought were friends started keeping their distance. One, a designer named Greg, made a joke about my new lifestyle during a meeting. The room went quiet, and I felt every eye on me. I wanted to shrink, to disappear, but I thought of Ethan, of his rainbow wristband, his unapologetic smile. Yeah, I said, my voice steady. His name's Ethan. He's amazing. Greg's smirk faded, and I felt a rush of pride. That night, Ethan took me to a queer community center in Boys Town. It was a fundraiser. All laughter and music and people who didn't care who you loved. I'd never been somewhere like that. Surrounded by people who got it, who lived it. Ethan introduced me to his friends, artists, activists, couples who'd been together for decades. This is Noah, he said, his arm around me. My boyfriend. The word felt real for the first time, like a weight I could finally carry. But not every moment was a victory. My mom texted, asking to meet Ethan, but my dad refused to join. Give him time, she said, but time was starting to feel like a trap. I wanted my family whole again, but I wanted Ethan more. The tension was a constant ache, like a muscle worked too hard. One evening, as we walked along the lakefront, Ethan stopped, his face serious. Noah, I need to know you're in this. Really in this. Because I'm falling for you. And I can't do halfway. His vulnerability caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on my own fears. I hadn't seen his. "I'm in," I said, my voice firm. "All the way." He smiled, and we kissed under the stars. The city's skyline a silent witness to our promise. Being all in with Ethan was like hitting a new personal record, exhilarating, terrifying, and worth every second of struggle. But the world didn't pause to celebrate. My dad's grudging acceptance was a start, but his silence at family dinners spoke louder than words. My mom tried to bridge the gap, inviting Ethan to coffee, but the tension was palpable. "He's lovely," she said later, her smile strained. "But your father needs time." Time. It was the one thing I couldn't control. At Iron Haven, Ethan and I were stronger than ever. Our workouts a dance of trust and teamwork. But outside, the world tested us. One night, walking home from a movie, a car slowed beside us. "Fags," someone shouted, tossing a soda can that clattered at our feet. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he kept walking, his hand in mine. "Keep going," he said, his voice low. "They want us to stop." I did, but the anger burned, a reminder of how far we still had to go. Work was another battlefield. Greg's comments didn't stop, and the office gossip mill churned. I overheard a co-worker whisper, "Didn't know Noah was that way." I wanted to scream, to tell them I was the same guy who'd shared beers and laughed at their dumb jokes. But I didn't. Instead, I focused on Ethan, on the life we were building. We started talking about moving in together, a step that felt as big as coming out. His apartment or mine, Chicago or somewhere new. Every question was a promise, but also a risk. One evening, Ethan got a call that changed everything. His ex, Ryan, was back in town, claiming he wanted to make things right. Ethan's face was unreadable as he told me, but I saw the ghosts in his eyes. "I don't want him," he said, sensing my panic. "But he's complicated. I need to deal with this." I nodded, but fear clawed at me. What if Ryan's return pulled Ethan away? What if I wasn't enough? The next day, Ethan met Ryan at a cafe. I stayed at the gym, lifting until my muscles screamed, trying to drown out the what-ifs. When Ethan came back, he looked drained but resolute. He apologized. He said he's changed. But I told him I'm with you now. That's what matters. Relief flooded me, but so did guilt. Ethan was fighting battles I hadn't even seen, and I'd been too wrapped up in my own to notice. To clear the air, we planned a weekend getaway, a cabin in Wisconsin. Just us. No gym. No city. No past. The drive was filled with laughter, bad car karaoke, and moments where his hand on my knee felt like home. The cabin was rustic, nestled by a lake, the kind of place where time slowed down. We cooked, swam, made love under the stars. "This is what I want," Ethan said one night, his voice soft. "You, me, a life." I kissed him, my heart full, but the world wasn't far away. Back in Chicago, my dad finally agreed to meet Ethan. We chose neutral ground to park near my apartment. My mom came too, her smile nervous but warm. Ethan was his usual charming self, shaking my dad's hand, making small talk about the Cubs. My dad was stiff, his words clipped, but he stayed. When Ethan mentioned our trip, my dad's eyes flickered curiosity. Maybe, or something softer. "You seem happy," he said to me later, almost grudgingly. It wasn't a blessing. but it was progress. At the gym, Mike's taunts had faded, replaced by a grudging respect. Maybe it was Ethan's confidence. Or maybe it was me, standing taller, unafraid. We were building something real. Not just a relationship, but a life where we could be ourselves. But life doesn't let you rest. One night, Ethan got a call from his mom. His dad was sick, cancer. Advanced. He had to go back to Ohio. And I saw the fear in his eyes. The same fear I'd felt with my own family. "I'm coming with you," I said. No hesitation. He shook his head. But I insisted. "You said I don't have to do it alone." "Neither do you." For the first time, I saw Ethan cry, his strong facade cracking. We held each other. Two guys who'd found love in a gym, now facing a world that didn't care about our reps or our records. Ohio was a different world, small towns, endless fields, and a weight of history Ethan had left behind. His childhood home was a modest ranch house, filled with photos of a younger Ethan, all grins and football jerseys. His mom greeted me warmly, but his dad, frail and hooked to an oxygen tank, barely looked at me. "This is Noah," Ethan said, his voice steady. "My boyfriend." The word hung in the air, bold and unapologetic. His dad grunted, his eyes fixed on the TV. I felt the sting, but Ethan's hand in mine kept me grounded. We stayed for a week, helping with chores, doctor visits, and quiet moments that felt heavier than any barbell. Ethan's dad was stubborn, a man of few words, but I saw glimpses of the man Ethan had described: tough, proud, flawed. One night, as we sat on the porch, Ethan told me about growing up here, hiding who he was, the fights with his dad when he came out. "He never got it," Ethan said, his voice raw. "But he's still my dad." I understood more than I wanted to. My own dad's grudging steps toward acceptance were fresh, and I saw the same struggle in Ethan's family. His mom tried to bridge the gap, asking me about my job, my life. "You make him happy," she said one morning, her eyes soft. That's enough for me. But Ethan's dad was a wall, and I could feel Ethan's pain, the ache of wanting love from someone who couldn't give it. Back at the gym in Chicago, we fell back into our routine. But Ethan was different, quieter. His smiles forced. His dad's illness was a shadow, and I didn't know how to help. One evening, as we spotted each other on squats, he broke. "I don't know if I can do this," he said, his voice cracking. "Watch him die, knowing he'll never accept me." I pulled him into the locker room, away from prying eyes, and held him. "You're enough," I said. "You've always been enough." Those words became our mantra. We leaned on each other, through hospital visits, late-night calls, and the slow grind of grief. My parents started coming around. Small steps. My mom sent Ethan a birthday card. My dad asked about him in passing. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. At work, I stopped hiding, wearing my truth like Ethan wore his wristband. Greg's comments faded, and I found allies in unexpected places: a coworker who invited us to a barbecue, a boss who asked about Ethan with genuine interest. But life doesn't let you coast. One night, Ethan got a call from his mom. His dad was gone. We flew back to Ohio, the weight of loss heavy between us. The funeral was small, somber, filled with people who didn't know the real Ethan. I stood by him, his hand in mine, as he said goodbye to a man who'd never fully known him. Later, at the house, his mom handed him a letter. "Your dad wrote this," she said, tears in her eyes, "before he got too sick." Ethan read it alone. And when he came back, his face was unreadable. He said he was proud of me. He whispered. Not for being gay, but for being me. For not giving up. We cried together. For what was lost and what was found. That letter was a crack in the wall. Too late, but still real. Back in Chicago, we started planning our future moving in together. A place of our own. Iron Haven was still our sanctuary. But now it was Moria's symbol of where we'd started. Where we'd fought for each other. One evening, as we racked weights, Ethan grinned at me. You know, he said, you're pretty good at spotting me. I laughed, pulling him close. Yeah, but you grabbed my heart. Not a dumbbell. Moving in together was a leap. Bigger than coming out. Bigger than any lift. We found a loft in Logan Square. All exposed brick and big windows. A space that felt like us raw. Open. Full of possibility. Unpacking boxes. Arguing over where to put the couch. Stealing kisses between trips to the truck. It was messy. Perfect. Ours. But life doesn't let you settle. Ethan was still grieving. His dad's letter a bittersweet anchor. I saw it in the way he'd stare out the window. Lost in thought. Or the way he'd push himself at the gym. Lifting like he could outrun the pain. I tried to be his spotter. Not just for weights, but for everything. Some nights, we'd talk until dawn. About his dad. My parents. The world we wanted to build. Other nights, we'd just hold each other. Letting silence say what words couldn't. The gym remained our constant. Iron Haven was where we'd fallen in love. Where we'd faced our fears. But it wasn't immune to the world. Mike, the gym loudmouth, had backed off. But others filled the gap. New faces. Old prejudices. One day, a new trainer made a crack about keeping things professional when he saw us laughing together. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. Later, he said, I'm tired. Noah. Tired of proving I belong. I felt it too, the exhaustion of being seen as other. But we had allies too. Sarah, a powerlifter who'd become our friend, overheard the trainer and shut him down with a glare and a few choice words. This place is for everyone, she said, loud enough for the whole gym to hear. Her support, and others like it, reminded us we weren't alone. My family was still a work in progress. My mom invited us to dinner. A small gesture that felt huge. My dad was there. Quieter than usual. But he shook Ethan's hand. Asked about his job. It wasn't a hallmark moment. But it was something. Claire, my sister, became our biggest cheerleader. Sending us recipes. Joking about being the cool aunt if we ever adopted. The idea of a future kids. A home. A life started to feel real. Work was better too. I'd earned respect. Not just for my designs, but for my honesty. Greg left the company. And the office felt lighter. I started mentoring a younger designer. A queer kid who reminded me of myself, scared. Hiding. But hungry for more. Be yourself. I told him one day. Echoing Ethan's words. It's the only way to live. One night, Ethan came home with a surprise, a pair of plane tickets to San Francisco. A week away, he said, grinning. Just us. No baggage. The trip was a dream: Golden Gate Bridge. Foggy beaches. Dinners in cramped bistros. We walked hand in hand. Unafraid. And I realized how far we'd come. Ethan wasn't just my boyfriend. He was my home. But even paradise has shadows. On our last night, Ethan got quiet. His eyes distant. What's wrong? I asked. My heart racing. He took my hand, his grip tight. I'm scared I'll mess this up, he said. You're everything, Noah. What if I'm not enough? His vulnerability broke me. I pulled him close, whispering, You're more than enough. You're my spotter. Remember? He laughed, tears in his eyes. And we held each other, the city humming outside. Back in Chicago, we settled into our life. But the world kept testing us. A local news story about a hate crime gay couple attack downtown hit too close to home. Ethan started volunteering at the community center, teaching self-defense classes, channeling his fear into action. I joined him, not because I was brave, but because he made me want to be. Our loft became a sanctuary, filled with laughter, late-night workouts, and dreams we dared to speak aloud. But the world outside was relentless. The news, the whispers, the occasional stranger's glare, they reminded us that love, even ours, was a fight. Ethan's work at the community center grew, and I saw a new side of him: fierce, protective, a leader. He was building something bigger than us, a space for others to feel safe, to belong. My family took another step. My dad called one Sunday, his voice gruff but softer. Your mom wants you and Ethan over for Thanksgiving, he said. I'd like that too. I nearly dropped the phone. It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a door opening. We spent the holiday in my childhood home, Ethan charming my parents with stories of the gym, my mom laughing at his terrible puns. My dad even asked about our loft, his questions careful but genuine. Claire winked at me across the table, her smile saying, See, I told you. At Iron Haven, we were no longer just gym buddies. We were a team, known for our lifts and our love. Sarah and other regulars became our chosen family, celebrating our Denise year together. A new deadlift PR, a life we were building brick by brick. But the gym wasn't perfect. A new member, a guy with a chip on his shoulder, tried to start trouble, muttering slurs under his breath. Ethan confronted him, not with anger, but with calm strength. This gym's for everyone, he said, echoing Sarah. The guy left, and the gym cheered. It was a small victory, but it mattered. One night, as snow fell over Chicago, Ethan pulled me onto our balcony. The city sparkled below, all lights and possibility. I've been thinking, he said, his breath visible in the cold. About us. About forever. My heart stopped. He pulled out a small box, a ring glinting inside. Noah, you're my spotter, my home, my everything. Will you marry me? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. All I could do was nod, tears freezing on my cheeks as I pulled him into a kiss. The ring was simple, like us, but it held every moment in the gym, the fights, the love we'd fought for. Yes, I finally whispered. Always. Our engagement was a quiet thing, shared with Claire, Sarah, a few friends at the hideout. My parents were stunned but supportive. My dad's handshake firmer this time. My mom's hug tighter. We planned a small wedding. Nothing flashy. Just us and the people who mattered. The gym was our venue fitting, since it's where it all began. Sarah officiated, joking about our impressive reps as we said our vows. The day was perfect, not because it was flawless, but because it was ours. We danced under string lights, the clank of weights a faint echo in the background. My dad pulled me aside, his eyes wet. I'm proud of you, son, he said, for being you. It was the moment I'd waited for. The one I'd feared I'd never get. Life didn't stop testing us. There were still hard days, clients who didn't show, co-workers who whispered, news stories that hit too close. But we faced them together, stronger than any weight we'd lifted. Ethan kept teaching at the community center, and I started a project designing a campaign for queer youth. A way to give back. We weren't just surviving. We were building. Years later, standing in Iron Haven, now older, a little grayer, I watched Ethan spot a new kid scrawny, nervous, like I once was. "You've got this," Ethan said, his voice as steady as ever. I smiled, my ring catching the light. He'd grabbed my heart, not a dumbbell. And together, we'd lifted a life worth living.